how do you do anything? How do you do things so that it all doesn't end up in a mess? This is one of the oldest questions in the world. Why you do things is probably the first old question, and the second old question is how do you do it so you don't mess up? So there was a statistician, of all people, an American statistician named William Edward Deming, and he put together a set of steps to help people do things. He was especially drawn, in a way, to help the Japanese business community after World War II. Japan was flat knocked down, but people like Deming went over from the United States and helped the Japanese recover their economy. And one of the ways he did this was by teaching what he called the Deming cycle. And it goes as follows. First, you make a plan. Second, you do something. Third, you study what you did. And then fourth, you act. Does this sound familiar? Well, it is. It's the scientific method. It's how anybody that's well organized gets a rocket into space or creates a new invention or does whatever it takes. But in areas like business, it doesn't always play that way because there are so many competing interests. You know, management wants this and the workers want that and so forth, and it doesn't quite come out the way we want it to. But let us look at Deming's cycle and see how it would apply to us and maybe to other circumstances that we find ourselves in. So here I am. I've got a ton of things to do. I don't know what to do. What do I do first? Where do I go? Maybe I should just go lie down. I don't know. Maybe I should just avoid it. No, don't do that. Why don't you make a plan? And you could talk about what's the most important thing, or we could say what is the most urgent thing, or the thing that I'd like to do best, or the most time-consuming thing, or the most expensive thing. Organize the things in your head in a way that makes sense to you, and then connect them. And then that becomes your plan. Okay. Now, you might need to get other people involved in your plan, and that's part of the planning too. But once you've got a sort of map of all this stuff, you can say, okay, I've got a plan. Then you put the plan into action. And that's the second part of the Deming cycle. Do. Get out there and do it. And as you do it, you'll notice that there are gaps. You'll notice that there are mistakes. You'll notice that there are things you hadn't even thought about. And that's good. That's what doing contributes to a plan. It points up the gaps. It points up the misperceptions and so forth. So you go from plan to do. Then after you've done do, you grab your notes together and you say, let's study what happened here. Let's see what worked. Let's see what didn't. Let's see what needs to be thrown away, what seems necessary to add to it, and so on and so on and so forth. And that is the study part. And then when you've studied it all and put it all together, then you, in effect, do it all over, but differently. And he calls that part act. Plan, do, study, act. Doesn't that sound obvious? But by the same token, how many of us actually do it? So what he was saying is, let's get serious here, folks. Let's really implement the things that we know that are worth doing and do them in the right way. I think one of the reasons he did that was because he was a statistician. He had the smarts to figure out big generalizations based on data and then to notice the patterns. And he actually wanted to teach those patterns to people. And the first big group that he taught it to was the Japanese business community after World War II. And as a result of his teaching, as a direct result of his teaching, Japan had a gigantic growth spurt after the war. There was a huge market for Japanese automobiles and Japanese products and all kinds of things because the quality of those products was so high. And it was so high because the Japanese were sort of free to do what they really wanted to do deep down, thanks to the Deming cycle. So maybe you could do something like that. Do you want to put the Deming cycle into action and see what happens? Try it over the summer. Frank Crane, Counseling Center.